Imagine waking up tomorrow, and for the first time in years, your mind is quiet. No endless overthinking, no fear of what people think, no panic about the future, no replaying conversations from yesterday, just peace. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Because we've been taught that anxiety is something we simply have to live with. But here's something strange. Over 2,000 years ago, long before smartphones, social media, deadlines, and endless notifications, the Stoics discovered a way to remain calm in the middle of chaos. They weren't kings protected by luxury. They lived through war, plague, exile, betrayal, the constant uncertainty of life. Yet they developed a mindset so powerful that even today, psychologists, athletes, CEOs, and military leaders continue to study it. And what they discovered about anxiety may completely change the way you see your own mind. Because the greatest prison isn't the world around you. It's the one you've built inside your own thoughts. Today, we're uncovering the ancient cure for modern anxiety. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the battle was never against the world. It was always against your own thinking. Hello everyone, welcome back to Wisdom Unbounding World. Rule 1. Anxiety is not created by events. Most people believe anxiety comes from life itself. The job, money, relationships, the future. But think about this. Two people lose the same job. One completely falls apart. The other calmly starts planning the next step. The event was identical. The experience wasn't. So what changed? The answer fascinated the Stoics. People are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. Read that again. Not by things, by the meaning we attach to them. Imagine hearing your phone ring late at night. Instantly your heart races. You assume something terrible has happened. A minute later you discover it's just a wrong number. Nothing in reality changed. Only your interpretation changed. Your body reacted to a story, not to reality. That's how anxiety works. It predicts disasters that haven't happened. It creates conversations that never exist. It imagines futures that almost never arrive. Your brain is trying to protect you, but it often protects you from imaginary dangers. The Stoics understood this centuries before neuroscience. They trained themselves to pause whenever fear appeared. Most anxious thoughts collapse the moment they're examined, because fear grows best in darkness. The moment you shine awareness on it, it begins to lose its power. The next time your mind tells you everything is going to fall apart, don't immediately believe it. Ask yourself, is this reality or just a story my mind is telling? That single habit can change the direction of your entire day. Rule 2. Your mind was never designed for constant noise. Think about the first thing most people do every morning. Before they even leave bed, they reach for their phone. Messages, emails, news, social media, bad headlines, other people's opinions. Within 5 minutes, their nervous system is already overloaded. Then they wonder why they feel anxious all day. Modern life has created something the Stoics never faced. Constant stimulation. Your brain never gets a chance to rest. Every notification whispers, pay attention. Every scroll convinces you someone else is happier, more successful, more attractive, living a better life. Without realizing it, you spend hours comparing your behind-the-scenes life to everyone else's highlight reel. The Stoics warned against exactly this kind of distraction. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. But how can your thoughts be clear when they are constantly interrupted? Imagine trying to see your reflection in a lake during a storm. Impossible. The water has to become still first. Your mind works exactly the same way. Silence isn't empty. It's where clarity begins. This is why many Stoics intentionally spent time alone. Not because they hated people, because they understood something modern society often forgets. You cannot hear your own wisdom. If the world never stops talking, try something simple tomorrow morning. Don't touch your phone for the first 30 minutes. Instead, sit quietly, take a walk, write down your thoughts, watch your breathing. It may feel uncomfortable at first. That's because your mind has become addicted to stimulation. But on the other side of that discomfort, you'll begin discovering something priceless. Mental space. And where there is space, there is peace. Rule 3. The day you stop trying to control everything. Imagine you're standing in the middle of the ocean. A storm begins. The waves rise higher. The wind becomes violent. Would you waste your energy trying to stop the storm? Of course not. You would focus on steering your boat. Yet this is exactly what most people do every day. They try to control what other people think. They try to control the future. They try to control the economy, their reputation, their past, even the opinions of strangers on the internet. And when life refuses to obey, they call it anxiety. Some things are within your control. Most things are not. That's it. Yet this idea has the power to free an anxious mind. Think about your last stressful day. How much of your mental energy was spent worrying about things you couldn't actually change? A message someone never replied to, an interview that hadn't happened yet, a mistake you made 3 years ago, a future conversation that only existed inside your imagination. Hours of emotional suffering over events that never obeyed your thoughts. Before reacting, they asked themselves two questions. Can I control this? If the answer was yes, act. If the answer was no, accept. Simple doesn't mean easy, but it is freeing. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with bricks. Each brick represents something you cannot control. The weather, the past, someone else's opinion, another person's choices. Now imagine setting those bricks down. The road ahead doesn't change, but suddenly, you have the strength to keep walking. The world becomes lighter. Not because life became easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. The question isn't, can I control everything? The real question is, what deserves my energy today? Because every ounce of energy spent fighting reality is energy stolen from building your future. Rule 4. The strange practice that makes fear lose its power. At first, this Stoic exercise sounds almost disturbing. It seems negative, even pessimistic, but it may be one of the greatest tools ever created for reducing anxiety. The Stoics called it negative visualization. Instead of pretending bad things could never happen, they imagined them calmly, not to create fear, but to remove fear's control. Think about it. Most anxiety comes from one terrifying sentence. What if? What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I lose my job? What if something goes wrong? The Stoics answered those questions differently. Instead of running away from them, they looked directly at them. Then they asked, if this happened, how would I respond? Notice the difference. The anxious mind says, I hope nothing bad ever happens. The Stoic mind says, if something difficult happens, I will handle it. One mindset creates helplessness. The other creates confidence. Imagine a firefighter. He doesn't panic when there's a fire because he has mentally rehearsed it thousands of times. Preparation creates calm. Your mind works exactly the same way. When you calmly imagine setbacks, you remove their mystery. You stop fearing uncertainty. You begin trusting yourself. The fear of suffering is often worse than suffering itself. Think about how many nights you've lost sleep over something. That eventually turned out completely fine. How many imaginary disasters never happened? How many fears disappeared the moment reality arrived? The Stoics weren't preparing for failure. They were preparing for resilience. Because confidence isn't believing life will always go your way. Confidence is knowing you'll find a way forward, no matter what happens. And that realization is one of the greatest antidotes to anxiety. Rule 5. You're living everywhere except right here. Where is your mind right now? Is it fully here? Or is it replaying yesterday? Or rehearsing tomorrow? This is one of anxiety's favorite tricks. It steals today by trapping you between yesterday and tomorrow. You replay embarrassing conversations. You regret mistakes. You imagine worst-case scenarios. Meanwhile, life quietly passes by. Imagine carrying two heavy suitcases. One is labeled past, the other is labeled future. Every day you drag both of them through life. No wonder you're exhausted. Now imagine setting both of them down. What's left? This moment. Your breathing, the chair beneath you, the sunlight through the window, the sound of your heartbeat. This moment is almost always more peaceful than the stories inside your head. Anxiety feeds on time travel. Peace exists in presence. The next time your mind races, don't argue with it. Return to something real. Take one slow breath. Notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 sounds around you, 2 scents, 1 deep breath. You've just returned home. Not to yesterday, not to tomorrow, to the only place where life actually exists, right now. And perhaps that's where the ancient cure truly begins. Not by escaping life, but by finally being present enough to live it. Rule 6. Why acceptance is the ultimate strength. Most people mistake acceptance for surrender. They think accepting reality means giving up. But the Stoics saw something entirely different. Acceptance is not saying, I like what happened. It is saying, this is what happened. Now what? That single shift changes everything. Because every second spent arguing with reality is a second stolen from your power. You cannot fight the past. You cannot negotiate with time. You cannot rewrite what has already unfolded. But you can decide who you become because of it. Think about the strongest people you've ever admired. Were they strong because life was easy, or because they stopped demanding that life be different? Every hardship carries two stories. The first is the event itself. The second is the story your mind tells about it. The event may last a day. The story can imprison someone for decades. Acceptance breaks the prison door. When you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And begin asking, what is this trying to teach me? Your entire life begins to transform. Acceptance isn't weakness. It is the refusal to waste energy on battles that cannot be won. The moment you stop resisting reality is often the moment you become powerful enough to change it. Rule 7. Build an inner fortress. No one can destroy. The Stoics believed every person should build an invisible fortress. Not one made of stone, but one made of character. A place no insult can enter, no rejection can collapse, no failure can burn. Most people spend their lives strengthening everything except themselves. They upgrade their homes, their careers, their appearance, their status, yet leave the mind completely exposed. One harsh opinion destroys their confidence. One unexpected setback shatters their peace. One betrayal changes how they trust forever. But imagine becoming someone whose peace no longer depends on circumstances. Someone who cannot be manipulated by praise or broken by criticism. Someone whose calm remains untouched because it comes from within. That is the inner fortress. And every challenge you face today is another brick. Every disappointment, another foundation. Every difficult conversation, another reinforcement. The storms never stop. The fortress simply becomes stronger. This is why Stoicism has survived for over 2,000 years. Not because it promises comfort, but because it teaches resilience. It doesn't remove suffering. It transforms the person who suffers, and that changes everything. One day, without realizing it, you will experience your last ordinary morning, the last cup of coffee, the last conversation with someone you love, the last sunset you'll ever see. Most people never notice these moments while they're living them. They're too busy chasing tomorrow, too distracted by regrets from yesterday, too trapped inside worries that may never happen. The Stoics wanted us to remember something simple. Life was never supposed to be controlled, only lived. Maybe strength isn't becoming impossible to hurt. Maybe strength is becoming impossible to defeat. Because defeat only happens when you abandon yourself. So ask yourself one question. If everything outside your control disappeared tomorrow, what part of you would remain? That answer is the person you should begin building today. If this message challenged the way you see yourself or the world, don't let it end here. Share in the comments which lesson stayed with you the most. Someone else's perspective might become the insight another viewer needs. Until next time, guard your mind, strengthen your character, and remember, the greatest victory is never over the world, it is over yourself.